Most people think they're falling behind because they're slow, not smart enough, not motivated enough, not disciplined enough. That's the lie. The truth is darker. You're not slow, you're being dragged. Dragged through systems designed to move at a pace that keeps you tired, compliant, and second-guessing yourself. And once you see this, you can't unsee it because the system doesn't crush you by force. It crushes you by speed control. Too fast to think clearly. Too slow to escape. That's the trap. Let me explain. From the moment you wake up, your day is already pre-paced for you. Alarms, deadlines, commutes, notifications, meetings that don't matter, tasks that don't compound. Your time is fragmented into tiny, useless pieces. Not enough time to build. Not enough time to think deeply. Not enough time to gain leverage, but just enough time to survive. That's not accidental, because speed is power. And whoever controls the speed controls the outcome. When you move too slowly, you feel behind. When you move too fast, you burn out. The system lives in that middle zone, the drag zone, where you're always busy but never dangerous, always tired but never free. And here's the most important part. They taught you to blame yourself for this. They told you if you're not winning, it's because you didn't wake up early enough, didn't grind hard enough, didn't want it badly enough. So you internalize the failure. You think the problem is you, but the problem isn't your effort. It's the environment. Think about it. Every major system you're inside of is optimized for throughput, not transformation. School teaches you to complete tasks, not create value. Jobs reward presence, not output. Social media rewards noise, not clarity. None of these systems care if you become powerful. They care if you stay predictable. Predictable workers, predictable consumers, predictable thinkers. And predictability requires pace control. That's why everything feels rushed, but nothing actually changes. You're constantly moving, but you're not progressing. That's not laziness, that's friction. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. Some people figure this out early. They realize that the real advantage isn't working harder, it's stepping outside the drag. They slow down where it matters, they speed up where it compounds, they stop reacting, they start designing, and from the outside it looks like they're moving faster than everyone else, but they're not. They're moving cleaner decisions, cleaner focus, cleaner inputs. While everyone else is exhausted from reacting to 10,000 tiny demands, they're applying pressure to 1 or 2 leverage points, and that changes everything because leverage doesn't care how busy you are. Leverage only cares about direction. Most people are sprinting sideways. Now ask yourself this honestly. How much of your day is actually under your control? Not how much you're awake, not how much you're busy. How much is intentional? How much of your time compounds? If the answer is uncomfortable, good. That discomfort is awareness, and awareness is the beginning of escape. Here's the next lie they sold you. They told you speed equals success, move fast, hustle harder, keep up. But speed without direction is just chaos. The people who actually win aren't fast, they're precise. They remove friction before they add effort. They design systems instead of worshiping motivation. They understand something most people never see. Energy is finite. Attention is scarce. Time is weaponized. So they protect those things aggressively. They don't argue with the system. They route around it. And once you understand that, your entire mindset shifts. You stop asking, how do I do more? And you start asking, what actually matters? That question alone disqualifies you from most people's reality because most people never ask it. They're too busy keeping up. Now let's talk about why this feels so personal, why it feels like you're the one failing. The system needs you to believe the problem is internal because if you ever realize the problem is structural, you stop self-policing. You stop shaming yourself for not doing enough. You stop trying to fix your motivation and instead you start restructuring your life. That's dangerous. Because a person who understands leverage doesn't accept arbitrary limits. They don't accept artificial timelines. They don't accept inherited definitions of success. They create their own pace. And that's the one thing the system cannot tolerate. Someone who moves independently. That's why the pressure is constant. Notifications, noise, urgency everywhere. Everything wants your attention right now. Because if you ever slow down long enough to think clearly, you might realize you don't need most of it. You might realize the game you're playing isn't even the right one. And once that realization hits, you can't be dragged anymore. You choose your speed, you choose your direction. Now here's the shift that changes everything. You don't escape by quitting your job overnight. You don't escape by running off to the woods. You don't escape by chasing fantasies. You escape by reclaiming control over pace. You decide what deserves urgency. You decide what gets ignored. You decide what compounds. And at first this feels wrong. You'll feel behind, unproductive, guilty. That's conditioning. The system trained you to associate worth with motion. Stillness feels like failure. But stillness is where strategy is born. The most dangerous people aren't frantic. They're calm. Because calm people see patterns. And once you see patterns, you stop being surprised. You stop being manipulated. You stop being rushed into decisions that don't serve you. That's when things accelerate, not because you're moving faster, but because you remove drag. And drag is what's been killing your momentum this entire time. Look back at your life. How many times did you feel like you were about to break through only to get pulled back into obligations, distractions, or self-doubt? That wasn't coincidence. That was the system reasserting control. Every time you start gaining clarity, something shows up to steal it. Another responsibility, another crisis, another distraction disguised as opportunity. And if you don't see this pattern, you'll keep blaming yourself. But once you see it, you stop fighting yourself. You start designing exits, not dramatic exits, strategic ones. You carve out thinking time. You reduce inputs. You build assets instead of chasing approval. And slowly, quietly, your pace becomes unrecognizable to people still stuck in drag. They'll say you're lucky, or arrogant, or detached. That's fine. They don't need to understand. You're not here to explain. You're here to move differently. And here's the final truth most people never hear. You don't need more time. You need less interference. You don't need more motivation. You need fewer drains. You don't need to move faster. You need to stop being slowed down on purpose. Once you accept that, the pressure lifts. You stop panicking about age. You stop racing imaginary clocks. You stop comparing your pace to people running entirely different races. And in that space, power returns. Because power comes from alignment. And alignment only happens when you control your speed. This is why some people make 10 years of progress in one. Not because they worked harder, but because they stopped being dragged. And if you're listening to this and something feels uncomfortably accurate, good, that means you're waking up. The moment you realize you're not slow, not broken, not behind, just restrained. And restraints can be removed quietly, deliberately, on your terms. Once you see the drag, you stop blaming yourself. Once you stop blaming yourself, you stop complying. And once you stop complying, everything changes. You were never late. You were being slowed. And now you know.